Stand by. Up next on Inside the SCCA, the Runoffs Awards Show. And welcome to this episode of Inside the SCCA. This is a special one. This is the show where we are going to announce the winners of the Inside the SCCA Awards from this year's 2023 Runoffs at VIR. I'm Brian Bielanski. So, for those of you who've watched our runoff shows, you'll know that we've done this last year, and we're doing it again this year. And the parameters are pretty simple. We had 4 categories that we did last year and this year. And the categories are the categories are simple. Any driver who's 25 or under, that's one category. Any driver who is a veteran of our armed services, that's another category. Then we've got our Women on Track category. That's for any woman driver at the runoffs. And then our Perseverance Award. Perseverance is for people who either overcame something during the runoffs, maybe had some issues with their car and came back. Maybe they got into a thing in the first lap and they came back to finish well. And then we also have a really special Perseverance Award winner this year, kind of the absolute shining example of perseverance. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. And the decision-making process on who wins the award is 100% subjective. My team of merry men and women are watching all the races and listening to the storylines and everything, and in the end, I just pick. And there's no real rules as to how we pick. It's not necessarily the person who finishes the highest. It's usually the best stories of the runoffs. So there's no secret ballots. There's no PricewaterhouseCoopers tabulating the votes. It's just me and the folks who work with me on the broadcasts, and then other folks who kind of chime in over time and say you should look at this one. You should look at that one. So let's get underway. First, we're going to do the under 25 or 25 and under category. And that will get us to our first guest, because our first guest is one of our under 25 award winners, the kids. We have done right back from the start of when I started doing motorsports broadcasting, way back to the Racingwire radio show that was hosted with my dear friend GeeDubb Henderson. We have always focused on talking about young talent, young and up-and-coming drivers. And so when we decided to do the awards, or when I decided to do the awards, featuring someone who was a youngster, the kids, as I like to call them, was a no-brainer. So the first award winner is going to be from, and usually last year I did it so that there was one award winner from each day. And as I found out last year, sometimes the people who are eligible for these don't always spread out nicely across the whole weekend. So, sometimes all of the veterans race on Friday and none of them race on Saturday and Sunday or whatever the case may be. So giving out one each day is hard to do. So this year a little bit different. It's going to be 3 award winners throughout the course of the whole weekend. Sometimes it worked out that it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it didn't. So in this particular category, it did work out. So our winner from our Friday races is going to be Caleb Schrader, a young man from the from the Northwest, Northwest here. And he came in 3rd in FE2. And he also did really well in Spec Racer Ford 3. So, Caleb Schrader, congratulations. You're one of our under 25 and under award winners. The awards will be sent to you in the mail in the next couple of weeks. So that's for everybody. So our second award winner is Nolan Allaire. He is the national champion in Formula Continental and Formula Ford this year. So he could have fallen under the Saturday or Sunday awards because Formula Continental was Saturday, Formula F on Sunday. Old habits die hard, Formula F. And three-time national champion, because I believe he won Formula Continental last year as well. And a very impressive young man. Had a great time talking to him. He's also a foot taller than me, so if you go back and watch the shows and the interviews, it's me doing this the whole time. And I should have gotten an apple box to stand on for that interview. But nice young man. He would not give up any of his secrets as to what he was going to do in those races, and I don't think it would have made any difference if he had. He was clearly the class of both of those fields. So, and then finally, drum roll please, our under 25 winner from our Sunday's races is Morgan Burkhart, and he joins us now. Morgan, hello, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
So the way we're going to do this is we're going to talk and do kind of a traditional show with talking with Morgan here, and we're going to go through and tell his story like we do with most of our guests on the show. But we will break away here at a few times and give away our Veterans Award as well as our Women on Track and Perseverance along the course of the next half hour, 45 minutes or whatever. So, all right. So welcome to the show. Congratulations on being one of our under 25 winners. And you might be wondering, well, let's quickly ask the first question, because your family and me have a lot of history. So we're going to talk about that. And we'll talk about your run at the Runoffs, which did not have the end that you were hoping for. But I will explain to everybody why you received the 25 and under award, why I felt you deserved it. But first, I ask everybody on this show, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. How did you get mixed up with this crazy sport that we all love?
Well, that's actually a pretty easy question. My parents they got their competition licenses with the Sports Car Club of America back in 1996, I believe, was when my mom got her competition license. Both of my parents were active racers in our regional racing series in the DC region. So I pretty much grew up at the track ever since I was born. My first time in a race car was in my mom's stomach. So pretty much from birth, I haven't really had any other option to either like it or that's really the only option.
You were kind of born into it, literally. So I met your parents way back in the day. They had just moved into their house, which is not far from Summit Point. And you guys, your parents, were nice enough to put up a bunch of us flaggers for race weekends. And there was always a bunch of folks hanging out and sleeping on floors and sleeping bags and watching racing on Saturday nights, until we couldn't see straight and had to go to sleep. And that's how I got to know your mom and dad and your grandpa and grandma. All of them are just great SCCA members. Your grandpa passed this year, right, Josh?
Yes.
My condolences to you and the family, but great guy, and your grandma's still coming to the races. I saw her at the racetrack, that smile from ear to ear on Sunday night at the Runoffs. So just a lot of fun catching up with them after all these years, and it just a really one of the classic SCCA family stories. grandparents, parents. Now the kid is up and doing the thing and all of that, and it's just a lot of fun. So when you finally got into actually competing in motorsports, I'm guessing karts first?
Yes. I started racing go-karts when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
I raced at an indoor facility in Sterling, Virginia called All Sports Grand Prix.
Okay.
And I was actually mentored by a veteran Le Mans racer. I say veteran, he competed many times, but I don't think he ever finished the race in the mid 80s and mid 90s. So he raced prototypes there. His name was Francois Duret.
Okay.
He unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but I ran indoor karts on sealed concrete. So if you've ever been in a warehouse or a shed, the floor is like that. So you can slip if you're wearing shoes or even if you're barefoot. So I learned to race on low grip, and then stopped racing karts when I was 15, got in a car at 16, and really haven't looked back since then.
And that was so long ago. You're how old now?
I'm 17 now.
17. So you started racing cars last year.
Correct. Yeah, I raced my father's Honda CRX, second generation Honda CRX in ITA, which is a regional class here, and it's a front wheel drive, weighs practically nothing. So got my feet under me, just went and really experienced the racing cars for the first time. And after that, we did one season with that. We were pretty competitive, although we had some mechanical issues later on in the season. It's a 30-year-old car. It's seen some things. So this year we went into the Spec Racer Ford with Doggone Racing and Mike Amy. Really didn't think that we were going to be running that car at all this year. We came into the year and thought we were going to upgrade the Honda CRX to F production and try and make a bid for the runoffs with that. But March came around and the motor was still in multiple pieces. So we looked to other alternatives, and that's when Mike stepped in and handed me the keys to his Spec Racer for the first majors race of the year at Summit Point. I had done 2 sessions in it in the wet before we showed up for qualifying the day of.
Right.
And putting it on the pole and winning the first race in it. And just like, you know what? There might be something here. We could probably try this. So after that, go ahead.
Yeah. So you also have quite the history in e-racing as well. For those folks who are familiar with all of the variations of the Ray Esports League, I think you've won, something in every category on his race weekends and raced weeks. The Tuesday leagues and the Saturday Sunday leagues, right?
Not all of the Saturday Sunday leagues, but the Tuesday league, yes. Okay.
Because my first time, I remember you passed me so quickly, lapped me so quickly, and I was like, could he be from the Burkharts? I wasn't exactly sure at the time, and then I had to do a little research, and I'm like, my God, that kid was, I don't think he was born the last time I saw his parents. And it was pretty funny, and then I had to do a little bit of backstory, and I called up my good friend Greg Ginsberg, and I said, Morgan Burkhart, is he? And before I even, yes, he said, yes, he is. But you've had a lot of success in that as well, and that would include Spec Racer Ford there too, right?
Yeah, I've started doing the sim platform with iRacing in January 2021, so still kind of staying inside because of COVID, just right after the point where it's starting to open up. So bought a sim, had a little Logitech G27 that we'd had for the last 6 years, and got an iRacing subscription. And then I found that it was really helpful to kind of figure out, I use it now to figure out where the road goes when I'm going to new tracks. But then when I was still pretty young, I hadn't really matured a lot. And it was very useful to go and learn racecraft skills and how do I make a pass or how do I defend properly, because up to that point I had only ever driven go-karts, so the mentality with a go-kart is a lot different than it is with a race car. So it's helped a lot to really develop those skills without actually having to go buy a fender or a bumper or something like that. So definitely been really successful with that.
Right Well, maturity is one of the reasons why, or probably the biggest reason why you are receiving the hardware tonight. Because before even your race started, as I was getting ready for our shows at the Runoffs, I talked to some folks who are racing against you, and we usually interview the pole sitter for each race. So that's what we did this year. And I said to him, the dark horse in this field, I said, might be Morgan Burkhardt. And the old guy's like, oh, no dark horse. We know who this kid is. We're real impressed. So we'll talk about that again more in just a second here. And let's real quick, while we're here, I'm going to go and take a second and talk about our Veterans Award winners here for this year. And we've got the Veterans Awards are interesting because it's hard for us sometimes to know. We don't check off a box on the entry form at the Runoffs if you're a veteran. So I have to kind of do some research, and I've got a couple of vets who are involved. Racing for Heroes is one of our partner organizations. As a matter of fact, you can see their name above me right here. Racing for Heroes, one of our sponsors here, and they help me kind of identify who the folks are this year. Not a ton of vets racing at Runoffs this year, but we've got 3 that we're going to honor tonight. The first is Zach Rivard. He finished 6th in the Formula Ford race and had a really good run there. The other 2 vets we're going to honor tonight had a rough run of it at the Runoffs. The Eric Cruz and Kelton Jago were both in the FE2 race and were involved in a first lap schmozzle that was not of their making. It all happened in front of them, and then they kind of had no place to go, and then other people had no place to go, and ended up with a bunch of broken cars. But they both handled all of that situation with the class, and that I'm not surprised at all, knowing both of them a little bit. And so sad for them to get to have early exits in that race, but they were both set to have pretty decent days. So those are our 3 Veterans Award winners here for 2023. Zach Rivard, Eric Cruz, and Kelton Jago are our Veterans winners this year. So congratulations to them. Thank you all for your service. And we will be giving out those awards again next year. So I'm going to make a better effort to be able to identify our vets so I can know who is eligible and keep an eye on their weekends as well. So, all right, back to talking with Morgan here. And getting to your race weekend, and it was pretty much picture perfect right up until the race, right?
Pretty much. It's pretty much everything that we could have asked for. If you told me in March that I would be sitting on the pole in one of the more competitive classes in the SCCA, I would have called you crazy. But the car that Mike put together for me was beautiful. It felt, I didn't have to think when it went into corners. I kind of just thought about it and it turned. I didn't really have to make any physical inputs. It was amazing. I can't even describe how it was to drive. But through qualifying, started off a little bit rough. We were, I think, 7th on Tuesday qualifying, pretty much without a draft. So that was encouraging that our solo pace was pretty good and comparable to that of people running with a draft. Tuesday, I kind of realized that I'm going to need to try out this draft thing because I haven't really tried that out a whole lot this year. So tried it out and, didn't play it all that great. I ended up giving everybody else a draft and kind of screwing myself over. So I went about a half a second faster and went backwards a spot. So going into the final day of qualifying, the conditions didn't really look like they were going to be as good. So.
Right. But before we talk about that, before we go to the final, we had you on as on the radio broadcast that we did. I was Greg and I were doing the qualifying announcing, and we had you up in the booth as a guest. And before qualifying, I just want to put it out there to make myself look good, of course. I had said that you were my dark horse for the pole position. And I think I said something like, don't be surprised at all if Morgan is your pole sitter when we're done with qualifying. Now continue your story.
Yeah, going into the third day of qualifying, I'm provisionally eighth, and I would rather not start that far back. I'd rather at least go up one spot, preferably three. So went into the day hoping to go a little bit better, and I ended up getting pretty much the best possible draft you could have gotten. The lap, I started off really good coming out of Oak Tree, got a really good run onto the front straight for qualifying. Got a good draft off of Caleb Schrader and Sandy Satulo up the hill into the roller coaster. Was able to get by both of them going down the front straight, and then was about 6 or 7 tenths back from John Black, so I could really charge through turn one, the snake, and up the S's into South Bend the way I really wanted to drive and still get a fairly decent tow out of it. So pretty much the stars aligned for the lap to come together, and the execution was there as well, and we ended up on the pole by, I think, the skin of my teeth. It was like 2 or 3 hundredths of a second,
Yeah.
but a pole's a pole.
Yeah, it was quite close, no question. And we were all excited, and you know, we're not supposed to root, but yeah, we know who our favorites are. And when I say favorites, not to backtrack or tap dance, I love storylines. I love stories, you know, and, you know, hearing your story as a young driver with the family connects to the SCCA. Obviously, I know your parents. That's a great story, whether I'm rooting for you or not. So, and that's why I when I root, it's typically because I know it'll be a great story to talk about and share with the folks at home. So, so now we get to the point where I'm putting together the shows for the Runoffs broadcasts. And I'm going around to get all the pole sitters, and everybody I walk up to them and I say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a few?" "Oh yeah, sure, no problem." And I walk up to Cam, we talk for a minute. So I get to your paddock spot. And I said, you know, "Hey, can we talk to you for a minute?" I say, "Yeah, fine, no problem." And then I'm told, "Well, we can't wait till Mom gets here because Mom's got the shirts and the signs and everything." And so Mom, Dad are all in on getting you where you need to be and doing all the stuff to promote the sponsors and everything. It's really a whole family affair, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. My parents have been really supportive since, you know, I was a little kid running karts. They've
Right.
been my mechanics when we went to the kart races, when we bought our own kart for, I think we ran our own for 3 or 4 years. My dad was helping me lift the kart up and off the stand, doing all of the carburetor work on it, making sure that it ran right. And even this year, it's been incredible. I mean, last year we had our own car and we were doing all the wrench work on it ourselves, but this year Mike has taken over a lot of the wrench work and schlepping it back and forth between events. But without their guidance of, you know, how do I go out and actually fund this whole thing, I probably wouldn't be here. And beyond just my parents' help, who have actually, you know, they're driving me to all of the races and they're making all of this actually feasible. I've had a lot of help from racing entertainment professionals with Jackson Gardner and Race Liberante. They've really kind of taken me under their wing so that I've developed a deck with them, and I've been able to really get the other half of racing, because the on-track stuff, I can kind of figure that out and work my way through. But the off-track, doing marketing myself and
Right.
trying to get money to go racing, it's voodoo magic to me. So they've helped me a lot to kind of navigate that.
It's voodoo magic to a lot of folks, so don't feel bad about that. What's the difference in dynamic, and was it helpful for this? So with having Mom and Dad be all of everything to you for all those years, up even through last year, to now working with a team and having a non-family member, probably mechanic, crew chief that you're working with, is that a positive dynamic for? Because, you know, a lot of times I got a teenager. They don't want to do anything I tell them to do most of the time. Is it easier for you when Mike is telling you do this or do that than when Dad and Mom are telling you to do it?
Well, I count Mike as family a lot too,
Okay.
and I've had a lot of trust been built with my parents since, you know, I was 6 years old. I didn't know how to drive a go-kart, and they told me go do X, Y, and Z, and then I would go and try it, and it would work. So usually when they tell me something, I kind of trust it and give it at least a try to see if it'll actually work or not. But for sure, Mike he's been really helpful. He's had more than 20 years of experience with these cars, and he knows the ins and outs and the advice that he gives is always well-founded and will actually help you a lot. So it's not something that you take lightly when he sits you down and we have a conversation, but we have such a good relationship that the chemistry is really there, and we work like a well-oiled machine.
So did mom and dad step aside kind of when you're in working with Mike, or do they still chime in with their thoughts and advice on the car setup and that kind of stuff?
They usually let Mike kind of spearhead it, because my parents have very minimal experience. I think my dad, actually, funny story here, I'm gonna slot this in. My dad drove the car that I put on the pole this year. He drove that twice in 2007, I think. 2006, 2007.
Is this a rub it in moment?
Well, kind of. There was a slogan that went on the back, the tail of the spec racer, and it said Morgan's College Fund for quite a while, because my dad had an unfortunate incident with an open wheeled car on a test day at Summit Point, and ended up cartwheeling it through the gravel trap and pretty much ripping, if not all four corners, at least three of the corners off the car. So he's got a little bit of experience with the spec racers, but that was a long time ago. So yeah, Mike spearheads a lot of it. And then when we all three of us look at the video and data, Mike will give his input, and then I'll look to my parents, and then they'll give me some additional input to try things. So it's a big team effort. So
we got done with the interview before the Runoffs race, and we all got together for a picture with your mom and dad and everything, and I posted that picture on social media, and my kid chimed in and said, "The woman standing next to you, your mom, looks way happier to be standing next to you than I ever look." And I'm like, well, she's not happy to be standing next to me. She's happy because her kid just ended up on the pole at the Runoffs. Yeah, they were very much the proud parents that weekend.
Yeah, and it's been like that pretty much every weekend, because they won the Worker of the Year for Start at the Runoffs. They've been working start finish pretty much all year long, even when I've been racing at the majors events. And it's pretty interesting to come across the finish line, and pretty much no matter where I finish, my mom's jumping up and down like a crazy woman. So that's always to look forward to at the end of the race.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me. All right, let's take not a break, but I'm gonna slow down here for a second and hand out a couple of more awards. So hang with me, Morgan. We're gonna now move on and hand out the awards for. Let me pull up my script here. This is the awards for our women on track. Of course, this award was sponsored this year, as it was last year, by the SCCA Women on Track Initiative, and which is part of the SCCA Foundation. And it's a great group of folks who get together and provide opportunities and support and advice and scholarships to women racers across all of the SCCA programs, not just road racing. They put together an amazing program at Solo Nationals this year. It looked like there were 150 or 200 women involved with the luncheon that they put on, many of them going on to race, and many of them going on to win championships at the Runoffs or at the Solo Nationals, which was fantastic. And they give out scholarships to race workers, as well as across some of the other programs like Time Trial Nationals, a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you are a lady who's interested in motorsports, check out Women on Track. If you would like to help them with their cause, which could be helping with providing scholarship money, or maybe even a car for someone to drive in a driver's school. Lots of different ways to help out. Make sure you check those folks out. The Women on Track information is all on the SCCA website. So the three winners for this year's Women on Track Awards are going to be, first off, for Friday's races, Amy Aquilante. She was the podium finisher in third place in a sedan. So a big congratulations to Amy for that podium finish and for winning our first Women on Track award. Then there's Amy Mills. She finished 8th in STL, and I believe she was one of our Women on Track winners last year as well. So I think she's a 2-time winner of our Women on Track award. And then someone, if the word has gotten out, by the way, Morgan, that you're on the show, because I've seen a bunch of social media posts, people going out and saying, "Hey, Morgan's live on Inside the SCCA. You got to tune in." So there's a lot of Washington, D.C. region folks tuning in at the moment, and they're going to be really excited to find out that Taylor Hyatt is our Women on Track Award winner for her efforts throughout the whole week of the runoffs. We joked that if there was a runoffs podium checkered flag for the most hardship laps run at a runoffs, Taylor would have won that award because it felt like she was out between almost every session trying to get changes on her car working. Her H production car had issues all week long. And very frustrating week, but she kept her head held high, got the car on the racetrack, was really racing well about halfway through her race, and then she had a motor problem. It was a classic Kaplooey, and the motor went away about halfway through the race, and she was able to sneak it, as any flagger would. She was able to get her car behind the fence so that there was no full course yellow needed, and her H production race was able to stay green the whole time. And so thinking like a flagger and thinking out for her fellow competitors as she snuck the car behind the wall. She would have been the Perseverance Award winner, but I had 3 of those. So she is the Women on Track Award winner for her performance throughout the whole week. Just exemplified, just getting out there, trying to get it done. And I'm not quite sure if she's going to be back next year at the runoffs, but she will be back at the runoffs, I'm sure. We talked and did a podcast with her, which aired last week, I believe, about all that she had learned throughout the week and the struggles and to keep pushing through it and everything. So whether or not they make the tour out the Road America next year is still in question, but I know for a fact that she will be back to race in another runoffs, and I could not be more happy to give her the Women on Track Award for Sunday. So the Women on Track Award winners: Amy Aquilani, Amy Mills, and Taylor Hyatt. All of your awards will be in the mail in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for those. So congratulations to all of them. We still have the Perseverance Award winner to hand out. We'll do that in a few minutes. And then, of course, we have the big award of the evening, the GeeDubb Henderson Award of Excellence. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. Let's get back with Morgan and talk a little bit about the race now, starting on the pole. Was this your first ever pole start or in a big car?
No.
Okay.
I've qualified on the pole sometimes this year. I don't know how many, but sometimes.
But certainly your first at the runoffs, because this was your first runoffs. So
yeah.
So the poll was on Thursday. So you had Friday, Saturday, and Friday, all day Friday, and most of Saturday to think about what you were going to do. And then you told me when I interviewed you, you had something planned for the start of the race. How did that go out? How did that work out?
I think it worked out pretty well. I was watching Franklin Futrell's video and Dave Ogren's video, and I actually got a really good jump off the start. But the only issue was that Franklin was actively pushing Russ, so they both ended up getting by me before we got to turn 1. And Dave, I got too good of a jump on Dave, so I didn't have any help at all going into turn 1, and ended up getting past me before we even got to the corner.
Right. But you hung in that top 5 group for a long time. Did you ever lead after that first lap?
I didn't, no.
Okay.
And this was a lot of what I was plotting about during Friday. Is I knew that we had the solo pace based off of the Tuesday qualifying session, that our pace on our own was really good compared to them, even with a draft. So I see no need for me to go out and kind of lead, let them really see what I can do, what kind of lines I'm taking. I kind of want to keep my cards really close to my chest so that I'm giving myself the best opportunity, because it did look a lot to me like Dave, Russ, and Franklin, they were all kind of switching back and forth, playing with each other, really feeling out the waters and seeing how each other raced, which places were they fast or not. And I was kind of just sitting back behind, and by about lap 10, I had been behind each person in our group for about 2 or 3 laps minimum. So I had a really good idea and a really good feel for where can I attack, where should I not attack, and that kind of thing. So it was a lot of just patience.
So how old are you?
17.
17. Most 17-year-olds just want to lead. And patience and maturity is, I said earlier, one of the reasons why you were getting this award was maturity. And to go into your first runoffs and be on the pole and know that you don't need, and probably it's even better if you don't lead at all in the first half, 3/4, maybe 14 of the 15 laps. And then to actually put that in practice and not let the moment get to you and say, holy gosh, I'm the pole sitter at the runoffs and dang it, I'm going to lead because I'm going to lead. That's pretty impressive. So so the fact that you weren't leading for the first bit of the race was by design. I love that. And then at some point in time, it didn't go quite the way you were hoping. So tell us about what happened there. I guess, about lap 8 or 9?
Well, I think it was lap 12.
12, yeah. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, we had made pretty much the whole way through the race. And I was still kind of just sitting back there, and going into lap 12, we were still as a group. The lap didn't really feel much different than any of the ones previously. Going through the snake, it felt a little bit weird through, I think it was turn 6. I turned in, it pushed a little bit, and then suddenly all of got really loose on the exit and ended up dropping a tire. And I was like, okay, maybe I missed the entrance or something like that. Maybe I made a mistake. And then going under the bridge, just before we came up into the climbing S's, I could feel the car kind of start to squat and pick up the front left corner. And I'm thinking to myself, we're at about 115, 118 miles an hour by the time we're entering the S's. I'm in a mid-engine car, and I'm about to turn. If I lift, it's going to be much worse. So I'm kind of just riding it through, hoping that it's, just a small issue, and then I'm going to be able to kind of limp it home and manage it.
Right.
I came up through the climbing S's. I could tell something wasn't wrong, but I knew I couldn't peel my foot off the floor because I really didn't want to experience what it was like to go off in the climbing S's. And then as soon as we crested the hill going into South Bend, I got wheel spin. And at that point, I knew something was very wrong. So I tried to woe it down as fast as I could, but since there's so little distance between the top of the S's and the entrance to South Bend, usually race pace we're going through there about 98, 99, but between 98 and 100 miles an hour on entry. I got it woed down to 94, and the bolts holding the rear right rocker arm together snapped.
Ouch.
And right rear suspension collapsed, and I exited the pavement at about 91 miles an hour and bounced through the grass in South Bend.
Yeah. We thought it was a flat tire from looking from afar. Obviously not in the car with the knowledge of what you were being told through the steering wheel. That was kind of the idea that we had when we were watching it all happen. And you didn't hit anything hard, right?
No, I was very lucky looking back on it, and actually very pleased that I only took a few jumps through the grass in South Bend, was able to recover back onto the track with no real issues. And then going to be like, I was angry at myself at first. I was like, all right, we're going to go through Oak Tree, going to try and keep in the draft. And I'm making 7 or 8 different turn-ins, trying to correct the car and keep it on the road. And then I look in the mirror and I see a bunch of smoke billowing out of the back of the car. And I'm like, oh, can't really do anything with that. So I just kind of pulled it into South Paddock there. But afterwards, we realized that it was due to contacts previously was why the bolt was stressed enough. It was contact in qualifying, and then another hit on lap 1 going into the roller coaster with another driver ended up accelerating the process. And if it waited 3 more laps, we would have been okay, but accelerated it enough that it came out early.
Just like racing incident type contact, nothing egregious, just one of those things, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. So, but I would consider, and I'm hoping you do too, your first runoffs a gleaming success.
I would say that I'm very proud of what we've done as a team. We've really gone out and proved that we're really quick. The car is really good, and that's the other thing that I want to interject here real quick is that car is available for rent. So you can go look up Doggone Racing online, call up Mike Amy, and you can go and rent that car and drive it if you'd like to. So
when you're not driving it.
Yeah, when I'm not driving it. But yeah, I'm extremely proud of what we accomplished. I think I heard after the event that I was the first rookie to pole at the runoff since 2003.
Wow. I didn't even know that stat. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. All right, let's give out some more hardware here, and then we'll talk about what the future holds. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, stand by for that. We're going to let me get rid of that and bring myself back up. All right, next set of awards that we're going to give out this evening, is our Perseverance Awards. And these are always fun because these are, remember I told you earlier I love storylines? Well, there's nothing but storylines when it comes to the Perseverance Awards. And the first one, I'm going to do these in reverse order. The first one is going to go out to one of the drivers who won a national championship last year. He was one of last year's Veterans Award winners, and he was also last year's GeeDubb Henderson Award of Excellence winner. And I think he won the SCCA Driver of the Year last year as well, or he definitely won one of the big SCCA year-end awards that's given out during the runoffs. I believe it was Driver of the Year. I should have done more homework on this, and I apologize, Mr. Stephen Trone. But Steve gets the Perseverance Award for his 9th place finish in B-Spec. He was on the front row, I believe, of the race, and on the first lap or the second lap, he had a coming together with one of his fellow competitors. I'm trying to describe this as nicely as possible. He went off at the exit of turn 1 or turn 2, depending on how you refer to it. Got the car collected. Thankfully, didn't hit anything hard. Got back on the racetrack all the way in last place, and in a 23 or 25 car field. And through some fantastic racing up through the back of the pack, and then a fortuitous full course caution about halfway through the race, which was able to let the field pack up and again. Steve was able to drive to 9th place on the finish, and his partner, who he was trying to help get a national championship because Rich Roman helped him last year get the national championship, was able to get the national title even without Steve's help. So there was the positive of the day. But so our Perseverance Award goes out to Stephen Trone for his run from basically last to 9th in the B-Spec race. Now we're going to move on to Austin Bradshaw. Austin Bradshaw has been on our show a couple of times. A really nice young man from the Pacific Northwest, from the Portland, Oregon area, and also comes from a great racing family, Morgan. And he had contact. I don't know if he contacted anybody else, but he certainly contacted a wall during the Tuesday qualifying session. The family put the car back together. From a distance, you wouldn't have even known there was contact unless you walked up closely and took a look. And even when you walked up closely and took a look, the car looked pretty darn good. But he was able to keep together and with all of that, and he ended up finishing, I want to say 6th in F production. So a great job by him and his family with the perseverance to be able to put the car back together, get back out there, and have a great finish. So, and then one of my favorite stories of the weekend, Ken Kennard, who won the E-Production National Championship. And here's the perseverance part of this story. 22 attempts to win a national championship, and he won on his 22nd try. So if that's not perseverance, I don't know what is. And so big congratulations goes out to Ken Kennard on his 23rd try, I should say. He had run 22 runoffs races without a win, and on his 23rd try, he took home the top trophy and he's got the jacket and the champagne bottle squirting and all that other fun stuff. So a big congratulations goes out to Ken Kennard for the efforts over 22 runoffs races and then the win on the 23rd. So there's our Perseverance Award winners: Ken Kennard, Austin Bradshaw, and Steve Introne. And then just a little bit, I will let you all know who our GeeDubb Henderson Award of Excellence winner is. But we're going to go back for a few more minutes here with Morgan Burkhart and talk about his race. Well, we talked about his race at the Runoffs. Now we're going to chat for a bit to find out what the future holds for this impressive young driver. What does the future hold?
Well, that's a complicated question.
It always is.
all of the knowns so far is that we're going to go back to the runoffs next year for 2024 Road America. Gonna have another go at it and see if we can make it further than 12 and 15 laps.
Yep.
But on the other side of things, I was recently announced as a nominee for the 2023 Mazda MX-5 Cup Shootout.
Nice.
And the finalists for it will be announced this Friday. So fingers crossed that we end up making it in. And if we can.
Did you have you already had one portion of the on track for that or not?
No.
Okay.
No. They pick 50 candidates based off of on-track results. So technically we have had the first on-track portion of it yet, but they pick 50 candidates for their on-track results, and then they weed it down to 12 finalists that will end up going to the shootout based off of a video that you send to them and a resume and a short bio about who you are. So they quiz you on your off-track stuff, and there's some requirements that they ask of you. But if we can end up making it into the shootout, I would love to go run some Mazda MX-5 Cup next year. It seems like a really great series. The cars are so close. The talent it goes so deep into the field. Like the top 10 can easily, anybody within that top 10 can go out and win a race. So that makes sense as a next step for me to go to.
Sure.
Other than that, we're looking more at, I shouldn't say more, we're also looking at Trans Am TA2.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's also sanctioned by SCCA Pro.
Right.
They're, for those of you who do not know, they're tube frame cars weighing about 2,800 pounds, round about 550 horsepower.
Sure.
Really, really almost like a stock car. So it's a beast of a car to drive. But definitely looking to try and make something happen there.
Right. So the real quick to go back to the MX-5 Mazda Shootout, there's a number of SCCA racers who are part of that 50 in semi-finalists or whatever they call it. Austin Varco and Lauren Brawlier, who are both multiple guests on the Inside the SCCA podcast, they're on that list. There are a couple of drivers who were on the list, but were I think they were too old to actually do it. So they were kind of like honorable mentions. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some other folks from the club who are on that list. So I'm looking forward to that announcement on Friday. Hopefully all three of you, and we don't want to stack that whole group of 12 with SCCA drivers. So we'll probably talk about that when we come out with our show next week. So all right. So when you go back to the runoffs next year, are you going to do it in Spec Racer Ford, or are you going to try to do it in the Honda? What's the plan?
We'll do it again in Spec Racer Ford, for sure. I've been talking to a lot of the drivers back in April when we were here at VIR for the Super Tour, and pretty much the only reaction that I got out of everybody was, you got to come to Road America, you got to come to the sprints, you got to try it at some point. So in talking a lot to Denny Stripling, it's a lot about racecraft. It's a lot about drafting. There's 15 cars in the lead pack at any given time, and any of them can win the race. To quote him, you throw your cards up in the air and you pick one, and that's who wins. Right. So I'm looking forward to that challenge. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So how much of the Super Tour do you think you'll get to do next year?
That remains to be seen. I think I'd like to do enough to get qualified. I'd like to do 3 or 4, the ones that are kind of within driving distance. I'll be old enough to go to Watkins Glen next year, which
Sure.
is very helpful. So I'd like to do a good amount of them, but a lot of it all depends on what ends up materializing for next year and
Right.
how the schedules kind of play into each other.
Sure. So, well, definitely if you're going to go to the runoffs, you need to get to the sprints because that's your kind of your test session for the runoffs. And that is my home track. So that's a track I grew up going to, and it is a bucket full of fun, and you will enjoy that. So and then if all goes well, we'll see you next year at the runoff. So you must have a bunch of folks that you want to thank before I get to the final award of the night. Why don't you do that now before we get to the final award?
First off, I'd like to thank Doggone Racing and Mike Amy. I know I've said a lot about them on the show tonight, but I couldn't have done anything that we did this year without his help and his support. The on track support and trackside support is just incredible. I would come off the track, tell him a couple things about how the car was handling, and then we'd go over data, we'd go over video, and then we'd change the car and we would end up going faster. So it's a lot. It says a lot about who he is as a guy and how the team kind of operates and how much he really cares about how his cars come together. So very, very thankful for him. And as well, Kid Sea Camp. I've known them for a very long time. They watched me start scuba diving when I was about 6 years old as well. And they've been extremely helpful this year. OG Racing as well. The OG Racing shirt on right now. But I've become an ambassador for them.
Nice.
So they have been very helpful with kind of just providing me with the equipment that we need. I got the nice neon yellow gloves that have been kind of iconic from this year.
Right.
Those came from them as well. So very, very thankful to OG Racing and Envirotex as well for their continued support this year.
You forgot someone, a couple of really important people.
My parents.
Mm-hmm.
They've, I honestly, they've been incredibly supportive of this whole kind of thing. So it's, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, I want to go drive a car in a weird circle for a long time very fast. So that sounds like a really fun idea, but they get it, and they've been very supportive and just kind of making all of this happen and facilitating all of this. I've met a lot of people through them, and I hit the jackpot with parents.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was ever much of a question whether, if you wanted to get involved, you were going to have the opportunity to do so. That's the way the SCCA family works. So, all right. So the last award of the night is the GeeDubb Henderson Award of Excellence, and the way this works is we pick one of the 12 award winners to get this award. It's kind of our top prize that we give away here. And for those who might not know, GeeDubb was a longtime member of the SCCA, New York Region Executive, Flag Chief. I think he probably held every position in New York Region for years. A dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine, a co-host on the Racingwire radio show when we did it. And one of the things that he did over the years was, it was big for him to promote and mentor and open doors and help open doors for young racers. Andy Lally, who has had tremendous success and a multiple-time Rolex 24 winner, was one of the guys who caught GeeDubb's eye way back in the day, and GeeDubb made some introductions, and he was really proud about helping young racers get going. So young racers aren't the only ones available for this award, but last year it went to Stephen Trone for his B-Spec win at the runoffs. But this year, I think it's really obvious to me who we're going to give this to, and it happens to be the guy sitting in the chair, sitting next to me in the box here on the show. So the 2023 Inside the SCCA GeeDubb Award of Excellence winner is Morgan Burkhart.
Thank you very much. That's a huge honor to be able to claim that award.
Yeah. If GeeDubb were here, he would be choosing you. So that's kind of when I make the decision here. I think about who GeeDubb would want to win this award, and he passed away in the early days of COVID. So we all miss him a lot. But when I decided to do these awards last year, and we wanted to come up with someone to honor with the big award, GeeDubb was the guy without any questions. And when I choose the winner of this, I think about who would GeeDubb want to give this award to, and you were actually the first award I chose throughout all of this process, it's an honor for me to pass that along to you. So you're the second award winner, and that award, it's a cooler award than the regular award. It's a little bit bigger and all of that. So you'll be getting two trophies from us. It'll come in the mail in a couple of weeks. But congratulations. Good luck next year. And we will certainly keep apprised of the situation. And we'll see. Maybe we'll have another pole position winner interview. And next year, maybe there'll be a podium finish winner interview, and maybe even a top step on the podium. Who knows, right?
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. I think that would be pretty cool.
All right. That's going to do it for another episode of Inside the SCCA. If you like what you saw, then and what you heard, you should subscribe to the Racingwire Podcast Network, as well as the Racing Network on YouTube. And we do these shows every Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday evening at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and then we replay the podcast on Friday mornings on the regular podcast channel, the Racingwire Podcast Network. Follow us on social media to find out who our next guest is. Leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. If it's a bad one, put it on someone else's page. New Inside the SCCAs every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go play with cars.
I'm Dorsey Schrader, and when I'm on my way to a race, I'll listen to the SCCA podcast, Inside the Short Bus.
Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the Racingwire Podcast Network and Rule 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.